Thank you.
Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order of the Ferrisburgh Planning Commission for Thursday, September 4th. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Post,
Here.
Commissioner Weber,
Here.
Commissioner Tuggle,
Here.
Commissioner Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Hawley,
Here.
Commissioner DeYoung, Commissioner Schulberg.
Present. I would like to make a motion that we excuse Commissioner DeYoung. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Has everyone had a chance to look at our agenda for tonight? I would just say that item 6, temporary housing, is intended to cover all of our housing discussions, including the handouts from David. A motion to approve.
I so move that.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the approval of our July 3rd minutes as printed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Now is the time for public comments. However, I don't see anyone in the audience, so we'll move on beyond that. And that takes us to item 6, our work session on housing-related matters. David, could you give us an introduction?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I prepared a few slides concerning the part 2 of our discussion, which is general commercial zoning, housing opportunities, and then part 3, accessory dwelling units. My thought is, with the agreement of the Planning Commission, is to do a presentation tonight as well as our next meeting, which I think we could get through the rest of our general discussion on these 9 actions by next month, and then in November, December, have drafts, actually put pen to paper and begin to write those drafts for you to review formally. But my thought is that we'd have 3 conversations with looking at the pictures, talking about the more in-depth issues, talking about the architecture, form, and placement of these types of housing products, and then taking that and then putting pen to paper. So is that a schedule that generally works for you and your target goals for the project?
What, 6 months?
I could see us talking about really the parts 2 and 3 tonight, and then in October we would talk about the rest of the residential zoning districts and the attached housing products, as well as I think we have the other recommendations are concerning processes and PUD. We could talk about that in October, and then in November, December, have initial drafts of the zoning text amendments on all 9.
I'll just say I mentioned to Craig earlier this week that I was wondering if it's possible for us to be to aspire to get this completed this year. So I'll just say, yes, in general, I agree with what you're proposing, and it may take that additional time, and also perhaps similar to last year when we had some extra sessions on working on our master plan review. I'd just like to throw out the idea that maybe we would have an extra session this fall, so that we might, if the commission agrees, try to get recommendations to council by the end of the year. But I certainly don't want to shortchange our discussions either. Other commissioners, anybody else care to respond to what David said about our goals and timetable?
I'm in agreement. I mean,
I would be willing to do an extra meeting if the end of the year is our goal.
I'm flexible on that as well. And I think, you know, as we kind of move through it, we can always reevaluate if we need more time or if we can hit that. And I don't know if that goal for the end of the year is for any real particular reason of just having it by the end of the year, or if there is benefit to relaxing the times. I don't know.
So we are not compelled to get it done by the end of the year. I believe, Craig, we have until maybe March or April.
We got to submit it by April, so it should wrap up in March.
So it's just kind of knowing that we have to get it done by March. I'm trying to push it a little bit further on so that we're ahead of schedule. That's
Yep,
my thinking.
That sounds good. And then if we need to have a little wiggle room, we have it.
Right, thank you, David. Should we start with the slides on the commercial?
Sure, sure. Yes, and on the schedule, and I think, yes, we can keep the momentum up the rest of this year. And similar to Roger's goal of last year for the master plan, getting it done, we can just kind of have the same spirit of keeping it moving, and we do have a grant deadline, and that will give us a couple months of cushion as well. So in case you need a little bit extra time for the hearings and final recommendation, I think that's a good plan and schedule. So yes, for this evening, okay, so I'd like to just walk through parts 2 and 3, and then, as I mentioned before, the remaining parts 4 would be our residential districts in attached housing, as well as processes and incentives for housing. So the first couple slides are similar to our previous presentation, so I'll probably be a little less long-winded this evening and give you more of the opportunity to give your comments. So this is a general commercial, a multifamily and mixed use, as opposed to our last presentation, which was our downtown multifamily and mixed use. So again, similar objective to review and assess the two sub-areas on the slides tonight to determine a direction for appropriate building use and dimensional requirements. This relates to housing recommendations 1 and 2, but specific to general commercial, so multiple family and mixed use in general commercial. And again, same from last presentation, how do the following sub-areas differ in character? Recognizing those differences, should requirements be different in each area? If so, what is the appropriate size and scale of residential development in each area? So similar to our last presentation, we have 2 remaining sub-areas. 5 is the Leppings Plaza, and so there's 3 slides on each sub-area. Just as a general overview, this is zoned general commercial. We have about 9.82 acres. The majority of that is the Leppings property, and then we have a corner lot, about 1.9 acres. And as we discussed in the past, we have a good amount of underutilized land as well as a lot of excess parking on this property. You know, some of the challenges here could be the parking reduction, but again, I think we've all recognized that this site is overparked. There would also need to be some stormwater retrofitting. To the northeast is where I think would be a really good location for townhouses or other multifamily or attached housing. I believe that's a general area for stormwater. So there would have to be retrofit on a different part of the site, or they could even do underground stormwater. A lot of times I've seen facilities engineered so that there's stormwater treatment underneath itself. So that there's opportunities to take advantage of the land and more efficiently use what we have there in this 9.8 acres. Opportunities, this is, I think, opportunities for mixed use. You can have a walkable development and then redevelopment of underutilized land. Yes.
My question is, this 7.92 acres, that include the buildings that's already there?
Yes, that's total lot size.
So I know that Leppings own that entire complex. So you're looking at letting other people or them somehow develop units above the retail that they have there.
It could be, well, it could be something significant like a redevelopment or building where they already have buildings, or it could be where there's open space or parking. And similar to what we discussed last time, this would give them the opportunity. It's nothing that we're going to do. We would just open up the possibilities for someone to make a proposal and develop it. So it's we're just kind of providing those opportunities so that somebody can come in and propose something that would be in alignment with the master plan and for this area.
Thank you.
So is the corner lot not owned by Leppings? They're two separate owners?
Correct. That different owner is. I double check the property records. I mean, they're two different entities. I don't think they're the same. I'm unsure who are the principals of those LLCs, but there are two different entities owning land within this sub area.
Craig, has Leppings ever, the owners of Leppings, have they ever expressed interest in expanding? Have you ever had a conversation with them or no?
No, I have not. When that car wash was put in the southwest corner, the original plan called for it to have 8 apartments in there. But at that time, the planning commission thought it'd be too busy, so that's why there's just the car wash there now.
Okay. So in general, in terms of height, I think anything from 2 to 3 stories makes sense here. Discussing last time, we looked at that we were considering 4 stories in certain areas. I think that does get a bit high, but it's something that you can consider. Setbacks, I think in general, the setbacks could be minimized a bit just to draw, especially into that northeast area, you could draw the multifamily or townhouses a little bit closer to the road rather than having a deeper setback so that you have parking behind the building. I think the frontage of those buildings along the main public roads, could have front entries, balconies, porches, just to give them a good look from the road itself, and then you'd have the parking behind it. So almost in a way that the parking areas would be screened, or you'd have a softened view of parking. And you have, sometimes they're called like liner buildings, so that they kind of line the perimeter of a site and parking in the inside. I think we could have window visibility requirements as well here that we discussed at our last meeting. As mentioned, parking in the rear. Landscaping, I wouldn't really recommend significant landscaping here because we're trying to maximize what we have. But I could see street trees along the frontages making sense. Also, parking lots, trees make sense as well. I think anytime you have a parking lot, having canopy trees within islands or peninsulas in a parking lot just reduces the heat island effect and provides some shade and just makes it look better. So I would certainly want that type of requirement to be retained in the ordinance. Outdoor space, I think for this would be mainly rooftop and porches, but you might have some small like pocket parks in this area. But I don't think you would have large areas of green space in like a suburban retrofit of this nature. I think the priority should really be to make good, efficient use of land. This is going to be more of an urban area. And in terms of uses, retail, offices, and services are already permitted in general commercial. So what we would be doing is to allow for multifamily and townhouses, potentially townhouses as well, within this district. So we had similar recommendations for our downtown CC district. And so that would be something here that we'd be adding in residential uses to a district that allows no residential at this time. Okay, and then with this, this is kind of our general brainstorming slide. I see opportunities for like these types of, some of these pictures are similar from previous slides, but I see 2 or 3 story type attached housing appropriate along the frontage roads, the main public roads. But you could also look at other types of more traditional multifamily. Later on, I just going to skip ahead at sub area 6. This includes pictures of more your traditional multifamily apartment complexes. The one is from the top left there is from Spring Lake that you're all familiar with. So that's another option too. You could consider more larger traditional apartment buildings, or you could consider this more for just attached housing that would kind of line the streets in a way. But I think about it now, I could put those types of buildings on the slide as well. But just consider this type as well as the more traditional multifamily products as well for this sub area. So general thoughts on this, and what is your vision for this plaza if it were to redevelop and allow for housing?
I'm wondering, I would see apartments in there as well. I would see I don't know myself, I don't know if I could see somebody buying a unit. It's so expensive to buy a townhome. I just wonder how those would sell in a parking lot. I feel like maybe apartments would be more doable in that area, but that's just like the place in Spring Lake. I feel like that would be a good place for something like that, like a low income apartment.
And then, yeah, I think Dave's pretty much talking just residential. If you talk like mixed use, I fear that if there were ever retail on the bottom, I feel like the Leppings Plaza always has something open. So I feel like filling that, and that's not my problem, but I worry about just having empty storefronts. Yeah, I do see what you're talking about. I mean, I think where Dave is pointing, right along Van Wagner would be the ideal spot, but there's really not privacy. So yeah. Ooh, I don't know.
I guess I support the idea of having retail with living space above. I also think that apartments would be a better choice there. And in Leppings, I think it's probably one of the best places for that because he's got a viable retail business now. You've got a vet, you've got a hair salon, you've got a brewery's going in, and maybe other things could go in. Because one of my concerns about doing that is what retailers are going to come into Ferrisburg. Our people don't want they want their hometown the way it is, pretty much. So if you're developing something like this and you already have a start on it, as I asked at the last meeting, what if you have retail with residential on top of it and the retail doesn't fly? What happens with the owners then? It's like death to their concept. So this, though, is Leppings would be, I think, a good place for that because it's got a viable start already with retail that's existent.
So Regina, are you talking about building on top of
Yes,
Leppings?
yeah.
Okay. That would have more privacy because you're not like backed up into a parking lot. You're backed up into.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. No one wants Leppings gone. I think that's the thing that.
David, I think this is a great presentation you've made, and I would just say we're not mandating. We're trying to open the door and allow future development and the owners of the property in the future to consider apartments or condos and a mix of retail as they, in their wisdom as developers and property owners, should see fit. I think our job is just to say that as a planning commission, we think multifamily housing should be allowed in this area, and it's not happening tomorrow, but maybe at some point in the future, we would like to have the door open so that could be in the plans.
And so that's along the general theme of our last meeting, to where we were being a little bit less prescriptive, but being more flexible in what a developer could propose for the site. And then we would just build in our dimensional requirements just to make sure it made sense from an overall mass and scale perspective, but just to not really shoehorn them into a certain idea, but give them opportunity for multifamily, for townhouses, condos, or mixed use, just all as a It's opening up the possibilities for this development. Is that the general thought then of the commission?
Candy?
Yes, and I don't think we have to choose one or the other necessarily if we leave mixed use on the table as a possibility, and some future visionary might have a really great idea and concept for that area that would work with mixed use. So I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. I would be open to either personally.
Good.
Gary, and this kind of parallels along with the idea on Pine Street, taking Pine Street down from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. It just opens up the ideas. And by having us go down to 2 lanes, it provides traffic calming so that people can visualize, hey, I may be able to put something here, retail down below, housing upstairs, or whatever. So just provides an opportunity. That's what these, like in sub-area 5, if we're allowing housing in there, what'd you call it, David? Multi-unit housing?
Well, multifamily apartments or
Multifamily.
attached side-by-side townhouses, condos, and then mixed use, the full spectrum.
Good. Can we turn to the next sub-area on Van Wagner? Somewhat similar situation.
Where is that?
The, what's the name of the
Petroleum.
Trillium Center,
Oh,
Jordan?
okay.
Is the big space in the middle, I believe?
Okay.
That's
now I see.
174th and Van Wagner.
Yes,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
now we've got it.
So all the way on the east, that's the Van Wagner Center. So you have a number of buildings there, various retail and services. Then in the middle, Trillium with the large parking lots to the north. And then they also have the parcel then to the west of that with the lake and the outdoor event space. And then you have the corner lot, which is completely undeveloped, mostly tree covered, at 8 acres. Challenges here, I mean, you have some obviously existing well-established businesses on the east side, and then you have the undeveloped corner parcel, and there are some significant wetlands there to the south, as you know from reviewing some of the channel side project there. You can actually see some of the water. So that does take up some of that developable land to the south. So there'd be some constraints, but overall, I think you'd probably still look at 6.5 or 7 acres of development area there on that corner parcel. So the main opportunity, I think, is that open corner lot, and then potential redevelopment for the other parcels, but probably less likely in the near future. But it certainly could happen as buildings age or those owners have different business plans. So I think the corner parcel is probably the most ripe for development. The others could redevelop over time.
That lot was for sale for a long time, I think, that corner lot, like there's always a sign.
Craig, is there any history on the corner lots of any development proposals that you were aware of, or is it listed now, or is it?
It's listed now as for sale. The developer for Channel Side has had conversations with the owner of the vacant parcel. He's interested in buying it, but they haven't come to an agreement in price yet. At one time, the owners of the Trillium were interested in purchasing that property, put up storage units.
I was just going to ask Craig for some perspective as to what's going on with Creekside, with the idea being, is he going to continue right on up to the corner with the same concept, or is he thinking more retail on the corner?
Same concept.
Same concept. I mean, we talk about bringing commercial or retail into the community, and here we are in the community, and we don't even have a dollar store, and they're putting them up on every corner, which is, I've always been surprised at that we don't have a dollar store in Lefnings Plaza. But it's a matter of if they can make it or not. Everybody, like Mr. O'Donnell has said, hey, we need to put a hotel up on that corner. Well, it's not financially viable. Otherwise, somebody would have done it. So what is happening in Creekside is financially viable. I don't know if that's what we necessarily want to see all the way to the corner, but that's what you get, I guess.
At one time where Channelside is going in now, there was a proposal to put a dollar store there. But it just never materialized.
Wasn't there a dollar store next to Leppings? There was,
Inside the plaza, yes.
yeah, it was before the hardware store, because they
Yep.
used Lepping, I feel like they had Leppings, people that worked there, they had bags, I don't remember, but it wasn't there very long. But we
So-
did have it.
Craig, the Creekside development is strictly all below the channel. Even though he owns property north of there, he's not developing that yet.
He doesn't own that property north of that blue line.
Okay.
But the blue is currently zoned general commercial.
Yes, it's all general commercial except for the one with the pond and the outdoor event space. That's actually residential, I think, yeah, RG1.
Oh, okay.
So it's a kind of a cutout of residential zoned land there between general commercial.
For me. Craig, to clarify the question I had, Creekside owns both sides of the channel, but they're only developing the south side, is that correct?
The owner of Channelside owns
Both sides.
just the south side of the blue line.
So the property line, but the
Yes.
property line isn't the channel.
Well, the red lines are the property lines.
Right.
So where it says 370,073, that's the 2-unit building.
Yep.
And then you can see the foundation for the original building.
Right by the street, the new one.
Then the 300,074, we haven't had plans for that partially. I think,
That's 5 units.
oh, that's okay, that's the 5,
That's being constructed now.
okay, that's so the 8-unit, 5-unit, and 2-unit at 73.
So Channelside requires what type of zoning? What did that fall under? I'm forgetting.
But it can happen in both industrial and general commercial.
Okay, so right now, no zoning would need to change if he continued moving north.
For the corner parcel,
For the
that'd be
corner
correct. Aside from special land use or site plan reviews, something that's already in the book for general commercial. Whereas these 3 parcels, they were rezoned a month or 2 ahead of the special land use, the original site plan special land use submittals for that property. So,
David, can you show us the rest of the slides for this sub-area, please?
So for this one, again, 2 or 3 stories. I feel like this area is that we just kind of go with the general commercial setbacks. I'm not as concerned with the frontage and window requirements here. I think it could maybe just be a little bit more open-ended. Parking in any part of the site. So on the other side, I was saying, I think parking could be more to the rear of those buildings if any newer ones were to be developed. In this one, I could see this being a more traditional multifamily type development site where you could have parking on, around the building, any side. Landscaping, I think all applicable landscaping requirements should apply. Outdoor space, rooftop porches, as well as general open space. So I really see this one as more of just kind of a general commercial, general multifamily type of site, whereas as Leppings as kind of a suburban retrofit or redevelopment, I could see it being more kind of almost a mixed-use village type concept, where this I think would be a little bit just more traditional multifamily. But then again, similar to what you had mentioned before, we could leave things open to accept any proposal. But
Do we know kind of approximately how much of that is buildable, considering that's a lot of that is wetland?
I think only about an acre or so is wet on that south side. I pulled the National Wetlands Inventory when I was looking at the site, and it's not as extensive as I thought it was. But obviously, they would have to get the delineation done as part of a site plan. But I think there's still 75% or more of that site that is high ground.
I know we briefly discussed this, I think, when we had Channel Side here, but the zoning being that it's bordering residential and commercial kind of squished together. I mean, I personally am open to either for that particular area. You know, the like you said, the multifamily housing or the commercial.
I think it's, as we look at our limited options in Ferrisburg, I think I would like to see us make the change to allow someone to make a proposal to put multifamily here. But I don't know if we get a proposal for more storage units, we're not necessarily saying that would be prohibited. It's just we would be adding the overlay that multifamily is allowable.
Correct. If you were concerned with the proliferation of additional storage units, you would have to make restrictions in general commercial to slow it down or to guide them to a different location. Or you could do something to where you could have locational requirements. So let's just say, hypothetically, this was a corner that you really wanted to see residential or true retail. You could say that you could put locational requirements on storage units to say that they can't be on major intersections, they can't be on corner lots. So there's things you can do. I mean, I know the city has been very supportive of Mr. Camps and the Channel Side concept, but I can also see concern with that being developed on all of our available commercial / multifamily property. So.
Our vacant land, there's only so much of it in Ferrisburg, and if we fill it all up, then we won't be able to do what we are here to do. Yeah, I do have concern of that. I mean, I think it's a great concept for where it's at, but to see it continue all the way to that corner, I definitely have hesitation.
I would also feel like this would be a good place for apartments again. I mean, you're literally right off the highway. You don't even really need to go on any other roads besides Van Wagner and what's around it. There's not any like single family housing or anything. It's mostly businesses. So I feel like even the traffic, it would be like what we're talking about like in the city.
When Channel Side has like a living component, so they kind of blend, if that was to be housing, they kind of blend into each other, so, yeah.
Like we said, general commercial, it's a easier, the barrier to entry is easier and lower to put apartments in multifamily or in general commercial because it's not in a neighborhood necessarily. It's an area that's planned for more intensity, more traffic. So it's easier from a sometimes from a political perspective or from a NIMBY perspective, not in my backyard, to have higher density housing in an area like this. Typically less opposition.
Apartments or small footprint housing or something like that?
Yeah, apartments, I think for this one, it could be just a variety. We could have apartments, I think that'd be most appropriate here, but you could also allow for townhouses and condos as well if it was something that someone proposed, unless you felt that this should really be reserved for higher density and the rental price points of multifamily housing rather than for sale housing. But again, I think our common theme has been kind of keep it open, so that may be what we look here. Well,
I think, David, we definitely want to have this be open for multifamily, and it could be a great worker-oriented housing development. And although I'm not sure we have consensus on this, we might want you to give us some suggestions that would perhaps disincentivize non-multifamily uses in this area, and just for the commission to consider. But I think there is strong support for adding this as a multifamily allowed area.
Well said.
That's our final, well, we had some pictures here that we flashed on the screen before, but the more traditional multifamily. Are you prepared to move on to the next topic? Going
Yes.
from very large buildings to now very small residential units. So we're on the other end of the spectrum here. Accessory dwelling units. So this is always kind of a fun conversation. I sent out that AARP, I think it was called the ABCs of ADUs. I think it's a really good guide that they put together. So it gives a good overview of the different types of products, in some of the benefits and arguments that have been used to allow these in local zoning codes. So our objective here is to review and assess allowing ADUs in residential districts. Housing recommendation number 4, action 4, accessory dwelling units attached and detached in all residential zoning districts. And again, we're going to look at them in all residential zoning districts, but doesn't mean you need to allow them in all districts. That's the decision for you to make. And so we first go into general overview. You should know this from your studies and your reading. ADUs are secondary living spaces on the same lot as a single family home. Typically, you don't find these on a lot with a duplex or with anything more. It's usually they're accessory to a single family dwelling. The types, you can have a detached cottage, you can have a garage or attic, and I should say garage, attic, or an addition to a house, and then basement conversions as well. So you have backyard detached as well as attached in different ways. Garage, attic, additions, basements. Basements usually only, it's less common in basements unless it's a walkout or unless there's, you still have to meet building code for access, but some codes specifically prohibit dwellings within basements. So it's something that you may want to discuss as well. But again, it's an independent living area, so it is considered a dwelling unit. So it meets the definition of dwelling unit per building code and per zoning. So that means there's a full kitchen, bath, and living areas. Typical size is in most codes are, I usually don't see anything greater than 800 square feet. That's kind of the max for what can be considered accessory to a residential dwelling unit. Some codes have no minimum size as long as you meet building code. I've seen others say you have to be 300 feet minimum, but then I've also had that I've seen planning commissioners debate that. So, well, why does it matter? If it meets building code and it's just for a single bedroom or studio and it meets all of the requirements, building code, safety, why not have no minimum? I mean, you could potentially have one down to 200 square feet as long as you met the requirements for living space and kitchen space per building code. So that's a conversation you can have. Again, so why consider ADUs? This is all in that report that I sent around. So affordable housing without new land development. So you're really taking advantage of existing built lots. Efficient use of infrastructure, allows for compact walkable neighborhoods. You might have situations where you have multi-generational living. So you have parents, adult children, caregivers, grandparents. You may have a variety of different people in the same family just on the same property. It also gives a homeowner flexibility to make some rental income. I know there might be some concerns with short-term renting of ADUs, so that's something you certainly talk about. Supports community vitality and safety. I think there's some comments in the report about having just additional eyes on the street or additional neighbors, the neighborhood safe and people are aware of what's going on and kind of self-policing in a way. And then also benefits older adults and working professionals. So that's all in that AARP report. And then lastly, really this is our regulatory discussion point. So this is, these are the things that I would be considering as part of drafting this particular section. First, where should they be allowed? We have 4 main residential zoning districts. RD on the west side along the lake, RG1, which is the yellow area on the map. And also that includes the inland lake overlay, which is, obviously those are more non-conforming lots, narrow, smaller lots, so there could be some constraints within the overlay. RG2 and RG3. So with this, as we look at this, I could always put together the main framework for regulation, and then we could always fill in the blanks later as we are studying these neighborhoods more carefully and doing more of the fine grain look at the neighborhoods. But we can always put the framework together first and then determine where these would be appropriate. So in terms of use and occupancy, typically it's one per lot. It's rare that you would have more than one, but I have seen there are larger cities that are now allowing more than one ADU a lot. I think there's a lot. I don't think that's something that would probably be considered here, but typically it's one per lot. I think that's something achievable and something that could be generally accepted if done right. So some ordinances do require owner occupancy of the principal in order to rent out an ADU. The more aggressive housing efforts are striking that altogether. They're saying, don't care. More housing is housing, more housing. So there's that perspective as well. But there are a lot of codes that, as ADUs are added in, they do include the owner occupied principal as the first round of the ADU regulation, and you can adjust it over time if you became very comfortable with this. Mentioned before, long-term versus short-term rental. There could be some restrictions on renting ADUs short-term. Really the point of this whole effort is for people to live here. So short-term rentals don't really accomplish that goal, especially if we're creating new products. Size standards, mentioned before, 800 square feet is typically the max, but then we also look at it sometimes as it relates to the size of the principal dwelling. So like if you had a 800 square foot max, but not any greater than 50% of the principal dwelling, and you had a 1,200 foot principal dwelling, you would have a cap that'd be 600 square feet. So I see that a lot. Or you could just say, we're not really concerned with that level of mathematics there and taking the 50%, and we just say it should be 800 square feet or less. We already do have a minimum dwelling unit size for all new dwelling units in the city. So most of them are going to be bigger than 800 square feet or even 1,000 or 1,200. But I think 800 is probably, I wouldn't really recommend going over 800. And unless you have a really non-conforming house, typically this would be smaller than most non-conforming homes. But you will have you might have a couple of small cottages that are non-conforming, and where that'd be conversation. Would you allow for, if you had a small 750 square foot cottage in the city somewhere on a lot and there's room for an ADU, how large should that ADU be? Does it have to be smaller than that small cottage? Or is the point just if it's in the backyard and it's designed well, would that work? So parking, we usually allow for or require one extra space. A typical single-family dwelling requires 2 spaces. When we add an ADU, we usually want to make sure there's at least one extra. Detached ADUs, we look at setbacks, yard location, separation, heights, and architecture. So setbacks, sometimes they are subject to accessory setbacks. Other times, some codes say that they have to be subject to principal building setbacks. I think because we're in a city environment, principal building setbacks might really prevent ADUs from being developed. So you may want to consider a lesser setback or an accessory building setback for these types of detached units. And I think maybe as we look at this a bit more and look at lot by lot examples, we may see that, you just can't put based on the average lot size in a particular neighborhood, we may say, you just can't do a 40-foot rear yard. I think most of our rear yard setbacks are 40 feet. think maybe all districts. Or, okay, so ranging 30 to 40 feet, and that would probably disqualify a lot of lots from having an ADU if we said it has to be in the rear yard and meet a principal setback. So we may want to consider the accessory setbacks or something different that's specific to ADUs. But I think as we do this, I'm going to be looking at these neighborhoods as I write these recommendations in the text, just to make sure that what we're presenting is something that's actually allowable, and you don't have to request a variance to get something in. And then other standards I mentioned, the size, you could have a minimum size or just say fall back on building code. Lot coverage may be another thing that we run into. So we have lot coverages that are generally, on my cheat sheet, generally about 30% lot coverage, 35. So we may run into cases where we say, majority of lots will not be able to have an ADU because we have a fairly restrictive lot coverage requirement. So that's something that we just want to keep in our mind. If we're saying we want these, but the code doesn't allow for them, when you actually design them and draw them out on paper, there's not much purpose in going through this exercise if we're not going to, if they're not allowable based on the dimensional requirements. So.
Well, I'm supportive of allowing some of this, but I think to think of this as being the answer to housing problems is not rational, because you have all these restrictions. You have to have access for fire trucks, for instance. So how much can you change lot coverage and setbacks? Basements have to have access, so you're going to have to inspect all of this. If you allow rentals, hosting guests, then you got short-term rental issues. And I think that it's going to open up a lot of things that we need to consider. It should be allowed, but I really think that we're going to have some very strict guidelines. Parking, if I have an adult child that's living there and I've got my garage is filled and my driveway is filled, where's that person going to park? I mean, it's going to be something that's going to open up a lot of can of worms, and I think it's doable in certain instances, but it is not the answer to our housing issues. I think you're going to have to be really strict with your guidelines.
I think it's just quick response. It's just one aspect to the whole package.
Yeah.
So it can help, but it's one small piece of the puzzle. And then one thing just concerning, if you're concerned about site-specific issues, one thing we could also do is call this special land use rather than permitted use. I mean, some of these recommendations, as you get comfortable with them or as you see proposals come in, you review a handful of special land use requests. You may say, these are all being done quite well, and the requirements are working. We can maybe just make this a permitted use, and they can be approved administratively. That's just, I don't know if you'll ever say that, but that's a possibility. But if you had a special land use, you could look at parking a bit more carefully. And I mean, obviously fire code, building code, other things will need to be met. But if there are some concerns, keep it as special land use. At least that gives the opportunity for someone to build it. Our special land use process is
I've seen it work. My son lives in Birmingham, and a lot of the garages are separate from the houses unless they're being built new. And a lot of those garages have been turned into some kind of dwelling for adult children or older people or whatever, and it works very well, but they're not putting them in their actual backyards. They already have an existing facility that they're, and as far as I know, none of them are rented out or used as short-term rental at all, but it can work.
Commissioners, I'd like to draw your attention to page 8 of the AARP handout that kind of talks about the approach we might take if we want to get the best bang for the buck with allowing these ADUs and adopting, as it says in the box, simple, flexible, but non-discretionary ADU rules about setbacks, square footage, design compatibility with the primary. So I know we want something that will look good and not be cumbersome, but I definitely hear what you're saying, Regina, that there's a lot of aspects to this But again, if everyone has not had a chance to completely review this handout, there's a lot of good information in here.
Mr. Chair, ADUs certainly present a tremendous opportunity because if we could instantly create, there's probably some housing in town that's not used right now that instantly would go on the market.
Yes.
But there's definitely a lot of snakes in the grass. David, aren't there some lakeshore communities that have had accessory dwelling units for a long time where we could see how they're regulating against short-term rentals and like a case study like Saugatuck or Manistee or Buffalo?
Yep. Yeah, in Saugatuck, for instance, they've allowed for ADUs for a long time.
Mhm.
A lot of ADUs, some are even non-conforming. They actually have, you can do an ADU administrative review, but to rent it, it's a special land use. But they've done so many special land use reviews to rent existing ADUs that the Planning Commission says, why are we doing this? We've approved every single one. We haven't had issues with any of them. So they're actually going to change it from special land use to permitted. And then they've also, though,
For short-term rentals, like for somebody coming in for the weekend?
for short-term rentals, you cannot rent an ADU as a short-term rental separately than the rest of the house. So obviously that's a tourist-driven community. You cannot rent an ADU separately for short-term rental. You can rent it out long-term, or you can rent the entire principal and accessory short-term. But they also added caps to their primary residential districts, so that no more than 20% of all units can be rented. But there's an exemption. If you can rent your ADU even short-term if you live there. So if you're a principal primary resident, you can short-term rent your ADU, but that's a different priority for them. That's more of the tourist-driven economy there, where we're looking at more of the housing and resident-related priority. But yeah, there's different there's different ways that can be handled. Saugatuck has their way, and I think based on their priorities. But I think from an overall perspective of building the ADUs and how the ADUs have looked and have been designed, I think they haven't had any issues with what has been proposed and built. It's just that the short-term, long-term issue is something that they're dealing with and regulating strictly.
And people haven't really added on to create an accessory dwelling unit for short-term rental use, have they? It's not allowed?
Well,
Or it is allowed?
Yes, you can build it. But since they've capped short-term rentals at the 20%, there's, for instance, I think there was like negative 60 or 70 permits available. So the available permits are actually in the negative until people take them out of commission. But there were some folks who certainly wanted to build ADUs to short-term rent.
Sure.
But
maybe my perspective is a little tainted, Commissioner, because of our fun and games with short-term rentals, right, Craig? I mean, there's a lot of things in the mix right now, and I do believe that they're going to settle down. Don't you believe so, Craig?
Yes.
I think the issue is going to settle down with time. Right now, there's a lot of open wounds for short-term rentals, but I don't think it's going to be helpful to Ferrysburg to shove a bunch of new short-term rental properties on the market.
yeah, I think it's contrary to the intent of this project.
I would
Housing,
agree.
yes. Short-term rentals, no.
I would agree with that. I think it's a great opportunity, though, for people who would love to live in Ferrysburg, and earn maybe a position, like we were talking about on the slides, a younger person, older person who maybe is not in a position where they want to buy a big house or can afford to buy a big house, but they would love to be in the community, and this would give a really nice option at an affordable price. But I do think that would be good for long-term rental, not short-term rental, because I think that completely defeats the purpose.
Your Honor, I have a question, Dave. So the ADUs, if you had, like, for instance, on my property, we have a pool shed. So we're gonna allow, because this is gonna be totally separate, so then we're gonna allow like 2 buildings sometimes on these properties, as long as they meet the lot coverage in the.
Well, it depends. It would still need to meet the requirements for accessory buildings. So right now, if you'd still have to meet all of the requirements unless we allowed for both an ADU and extra.
One or the other, like, we're only gonna be allowing one still on each property?
Is it one building?
You can have up to 2, but 40% of the floor area or the rear yard.
Combined, like for the 2 of them? Okay,
So I think right now, I'd probably say we'd still keep it at the 2, and then so that someone could do a detached version and then have a little storage. But then you'd still have to meet all of the requirements.
okay.
But again, we'll have to look at the requirements just to make sure that we're allowing them, that it's actually feasible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for ADUs. Like, when I was reading this article, the survey that they did, the top 4 reasons that people would want them was for housing. It's not for renting. I mean, some of them, but obviously we can have control over that. But I mean, in the housing market these days, college kids they can't afford a house. So, I mean, I feel like in the future, that's what we're gonna see, is more families probably living on the same property, because either the parents are old and they need help, or the kids don't have enough money to even afford a house yet. So I feel like it would help in the housing market, and just another way to incorporate that, so.
And I do
That'd be
think a
awesome.
lot of our short-term rental issues typically lie around the lake, and with our overlay district, like, I live in the overlay district, and I just don't think a lot of those homes would meet the requirements. So we're talking short-term rentals, like, I don't think that a lot of them would be able to be in that area. So yeah, I could see it could be an issue, but yeah, I'm definitely open to it. I think it's a unique way to solve a problem, but just a piece of the problem, not the entire thing.
I think it should be able to be an option on the table, though, for people who can accommodate the requirements and that want to do that. I think that should be on the table, available for people to.
It should be noted too that if there are formal covenants or restrictions or a master deed that prevent it, they would not be able to go in. So we'd have to, there's something we could do about private restrictions in certain neighborhoods.
Would you continue your presentation?
I believe that is the end of the show for tonight.
I think you've heard from all the commissioners, and to varying degrees, I think we're kind of excited about this, and we'd like to have this as part of the additional tools in the tool basket that we have to address housing, even though it's just one kind of thing, but it really seems to me to be kind of in character with Ferrisburg and consistent with our small town feel, that we would be allowing people who have lots and homes that would allow this kind of thing to do that. So I think in general, and I hear the caveat about the concern about short-term rentals, but apart from that, I think we'd like to see this be part of the recommendations that we would be making to council for further discussion by all of us. Commissioners, we have Regina wants to make a presentation on Samaritas Place. Craig, there's another handout about the cell phone tower. Is that part of the housing discussion, or is that
Just your information.
just general information? Commissioners, does anybody else want to speak to where we are on housing right now on tonight's presentation?
I wanted to talk about the cell phone tower for just a quick minute.
Okay, is this an okay time to bring that up, Craig, or should it
Or
be?
after during board comments would be good.
All right, let's hold off on that, Rich. Thank you. All right, then let's close the work session at this time and move to the presentation by Regina on Samaritas Place.
All right. I went to this Samaritas open house, and when I walked in, I was greeted, and I told them that I was here from the Planning Commission, and we were just kind of investigating how things worked. And they immediately called their development director, Sheila Morris, to give me a private showing. So there are 57 1- and 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. This is called The Landing in Spring Lake. It's currently at that point, about 75% full. Rent is configured due to income standards. I gave you all the guidelines in the packet for the last meeting. All units include a washer, dryer, full-size self-defrosting fridge, a microwave, and a dishwasher. And having a microwave and washer dryer is quite rare. Water and trash fees are included. The units are cable ready and residents can connect to Wi-Fi at their own cost. There's a library common room on the main floor that is just gorgeous, and it's got 2 Wi-Fi attached computers for the use of the residents. There's also a common room that is kind of a kitchen that they can rent out or they can use for meetings or gatherings. This was developed as a partner with Presbyterian Church, which is right next door. There are elevators in the building, and there is a keyless entry system. 6 of the units are barrier-free. Samaritas, in 2021, received $12 million from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority tax credit for seniors 55 and up who met income guidelines. That facility was completed in 2022. As of July of this year, Samaritas began renovating Muskegon's historic Froebel School to serve as a family affordable living facility. This complex will consist of studio, 1- and 2-bedroom units. The city secured a low-income housing tax credit to support the project. This totaled $1.29 million. The Froebel school budget is about $16.1 million, financed with low-income housing tax credits and a permanent loan from Mercantile Bank. The old hospital facility in Muskegon is going to be developed into 6 3-story multifamily units, 144 rental units. It's designated low-income housing per Michigan State guidelines. It would be workforce housing for individuals and families with incomes between 69% and 77% of Muskegon County median income. Another half dozen projects will add 300 units of low-income housing across West Michigan with $8.6 million secured. And affordable housing is defined as 30% of your gross monthly income, and that includes your utilities, not just the rent, but your utilities as well. From the state's latest round of low-income housing tax credits, Michigan State Housing Development Authority gave more than $14 million to low-income house tax credit funding to 10 rental housing projects in 6 communities, a mix of new construction and rehabilitation projects, such as the hospital and the Froebel School. They're not always going to put a new building like the one in Spring Lake. Samaritas partners with other groups such as the Little River Development, LLC, a venture of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. Low-income house tax credits are programs administered through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority following a competitive application process. Developers who receive these awards can claim credit against their tax liability annually for up to 10 years. I would like to ask the Samaritas Joe Lotenbeck, who is their development guy, to come and speak to us about possibility of working with them. I was really impressed because the lady, Sheila, with whom I spoke, has worked for them for 23 years. She didn't look old enough to work there for 23 years to me, but then at my age, everybody looks young. But she still had the fire in her belly. She almost was brought to tears when she was telling me about one lady who had been in an abusive situation and how proud she was of living in this home. And to me, if you can work for a nonprofit for 23 years and still be really inspired by it, they're doing something right. Our master plan states that implementation of a housing plan will involve statewide and regional partnerships with local government involvement. And I believe that Samaritas could provide us with some of those partnerships as we look at affordable housing options. One of the things I mentioned to her is we have some land. I think subunit 6 would be a great place for something like this. We have some land that's low. She said, water levels, high water levels, I guess. And she said, oh, we've worked with that before. And Joe Lautenbach could give us some what ifs and how to's and possibility of partnerships, especially if there are grants that we can apply. Millions of dollars are being awarded. So if I would really like to see him come and speak to us a little bit about that. To me, I was so impressed with that building. It's beautiful. It's very rare, I think, to have the washer dryer, the microwave, and all the windows are, I would call it hermetically sealed. I don't know what you really call it, but you cannot hear a sound from even the units facing Savage. They're just really well done. They're not cheaply put together. And if you get a chance, you should go see it. They have one that's staged. They are small. The bedrooms are small. The kitchens are gorgeous, and they have better countertops than I have. So, just something that I think we might want to put into the mix here.
Thank you, Regina. Does anyone care to make comments or questions for Regina on her presentation?
Regina, did they share what the occupancy of that is currently?
They said they had about 75% of them filled. And as you can see from the, I gave you their income standards, and I also gave you their application form. They're very, very in-depth. You can't even smoke on the parking lot. I mean, so if people say, oh, these are going to bring in all kinds of horrible, undesirable people, it's a very well-managed place, and everybody that I spoke to that already lived there was very happy there. And I think it's an option for single moms. It's an option for small families get started in living independently. So if you would allow it, I'd like for us to invite Joel to come and speak to us.
Is the commission okay with extending that request?
Can I just ask a question first? Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just saying I would, yeah.
So if they're looking for partnerships, would they be partnering then with the owner of that property? If the property owner,
It could be.
if the property owner desired to work, so that would be more. The
It could
partnership
be
would
that,
more
or
with
they
that.
partnered with the church for this particular building. In fact, the building that's in front of it, the blue house, that was the parsonage. And now the on-site full-time maintenance guy lives there. So there's maintenance available at all times. You could work with the owner. There may be other charitable organizations that they want to work with. That's what I don't know, that Joel would have to come and talk to us. As I said, the one in Spring Lake was also with the Little River Band as well. So
But us as a city, we don't necessarily, since we don't own that property.
no, we
Yeah.
don't have to own that property. The city didn't own that property before the church did, so, or the village of Spring Lake, so.
Interesting. I think we're interested in if the gentleman Regina mentioned or some other representative from Samaritas is available to present to us, I think we'd be glad to.
Would you like me to contact him, or do you want to contact him?
You want to grab a couple of days that they're available? Let me
Okay,
know.
I can do that, because he's already emailed me, and he wanted to come the last meeting, and we canceled it, but I said, anyway, no, I want to present first to see, get a feel if you're even interested, so I'll contact him.
Great, thank you very much. Second call for public comments. Seeing no one here, we'll move on to the zoning administrator's report. Craig?
No report.
And then the chairman's report. I briefly mentioned the idea that we might try to be ahead of the curve and complete our recommendations before the deadline, and whether that is by the end of the year or perhaps in January, but in any case, let's not dawdle. Let's try to, I think we've been very diligent about this. It's unfortunate that we had to cancel last month's meeting, but David, this was a great presentation tonight. So I just say let's continue our work on the housing recommendations. And is everybody good with the next regularly scheduled meeting, the first Thursday in October? All right. Then we move to comments and reports by other members.
No report.
No report.
No report.
No report.
We're back to cell phone towers.
Yes.
Craig, the cell phone tower, would that help alleviate the dead spot that we have out on the North Shore?
That's what they're looking to accomplish, yes,
And they're not able to find anything right now?
correct. This has been ongoing for years, since cell phones have become the norm. There's always been the need to have another cell tower to cover the west along the lake. And they just cannot find a location to do that.
Craig, the notes in the handout refer to L12 allow us for 300-foot towers. Where would that be?
L1 is right south of North Shore Road, the light gray. The LI2 is up there by the substation on Van Wagner.
So this is generally the oil tanks and Lepping's property.
The oil tank property, both of the Citgo and the Buckeye Terminal, and the property that Verplank owns is LI2. Everything above the Verplank property and south of North Shore Road, the yellow, is LI1.
Coast Guard Park, we could not put a cell phone tower in Coast Guard Park
No, it's
currently?
deed restricted,
Deed restricted?
yes. We contacted the National Park Service and asked them that question, they said no, period.
And what about Fire Barn Park?
That we offered that and they want something closer west,
Further west?
yes.
Okay. Well, the properties in L11, the Verplanks and Buckeye Terminal areas, have they been approached?
According to this, yes, they have been and no one's interested,
No one was interested?
correct.
Isn't there some incentive as well that,
From a standpoint of community service, we've got dead spots where people can't call 911. And I would have to believe that those terminals would be interested if it was sold to them properly.
My understanding is that these people have contacted them, this person here, Mr. Buck, he's not the only one that contacted the city. We've had inquiries for the last 20 years, getting a cell tower out there.
Is that any closer than Fire Barn Park?
They want something further west.
So when we're talking about these locations, that wouldn't solve the problem anyways, right? They want to get closer to the lake.
Yeah, they want, a Buckeye Terminal on North Shore Road would probably be the ideal spot for them.
Oh, okay.
right, well, thank you.
Thank you. End of report.
Okay, so we have our next meeting, and unless there's any further comment, it's time to adjourn the meeting. Thank you for your participation tonight, everyone.
Thank you.